සුපිරි අධිවේගයක් පරදා ඔබ මවිත කරවන වේගයක් විඳ ගන්න. පියවර තුනකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම් ෆයිබර් ඔප්ටික් ජාලයට එක්වන්න. slp.lk වෙත පිවිසෙන්න.
Making headlines on First at 9. Caught in between. Prime Minister explains how Sri Lanka is embroiled in China's geopolitics.
And thereby increasing its strategic vulnerability. Now we have also seems to have got caught on it because we have the Hambantota harbour.
More resistance. The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka writes to the President expressing their disappointment over the reinstatement of capital punishment. Anatomy of the port city. Experts propose legislation towards smooth running of Colombo's newest editions. A country in turmoil. Suicide bomber at an election rally kills over 100 in Pakistan as ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is arrested upon his return to the country. A day to remember. Sri Lanka trounced South Africa in the first test in Galle.
Yeah, very good performance from Sri Lanka.
Other Derana, first at 9. Sponsored by
Nestamol Plus, now with the goodness of oats.
From Nestle. A very good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to your top story tonight. President Maithripala Sirisena left for Rome today to attend the 24th session of the Committee on Forestry and the 6th World Forest Week, organized by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. The 24th session of the Committee on Forestry and the 6th World Forest Week will explore the contributions that forests can make to achieve sustainable development goals.
President Maithripala Sirisena left for Rome this afternoon. He will be attending the World Forest Week and the 24th session of the Committee on Forestry, where the President is scheduled to deliver his special speech at the session on Monday. Later, President Sirisena will undertake a tour of Georgia from the 17th to the 19th to attend the Open Government Partnership Global Summit 2018. Prior to his departure, the President attended the second day of the Ayurveda Expo 2018 held at the BMICH this morning. The three-day exhibition was organized by the National Chamber of Commerce in association with the Ministry of Health and Indigenous Medicine and other government institutions for the 7th consecutive time.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is of the view that Sri Lanka is currently caught up in China's geopolitical insecurities following Chinese interests in the Hambantota port. The Premier says that given the fact India does not want a change of the status quo, any power struggle in the Indian Ocean will have adverse effects on Sri Lanka's own economic growth. Speaking at the convocation of the Bandaranaike International Diplomatic Training Institute, the Premier added that the Navy is instructed to beef up security concerning the Hambantota port, which include emphasis on anti-submarine war.
China recognizes its strategic vulnerability in the Indian Ocean, has sought means of reducing its strategic vulnerability in different projects that have come. As a result of China's challenge in the US in the Pacific, US does not want to see a Chinese expansion in the Indian Ocean. India, the strongest power among the littoral nations, would not welcome a change in the status quo. And Japan is committed to the free maritime of the Indian Ocean as well as the Pacific to ensure that its economy is supplied by maritime trade. As a result of these issues, Indian Ocean is in the danger of becoming a major center of tension again. If a power struggle breaks out in the Indian Ocean, a destabilized Indian Ocean is adverse to our economic interests. Stability and growth in the Indian Ocean will further our own national goal. Then our instrument is actually diplomacy. Now this is where we are starting again for us to come forward. Now we have a new concept, the Indo-Pacific, put forward by the USA. From Asia-Pacific, the terminology changes to India-Pacific, a coast of East Africa. China views the Indo-Pacific as a mechanism for containing China in the Pacific and Indian Ocean and thereby increasing its strategic vulnerability. Now we have also seems to have got caught on it because we have the Hambantota harbour, which we made into a public-private partnership with China merchants and our own Sri Lanka Ports Authority. We have the port city. The Hambantota is already getting a type of publicity which the government of Sri Lanka could have never ensured, that it will become a Chinese naval base. Our agreement with China merchants, China government, is that the security of Sri Lanka and the Hambantota port will lie with the Sri Lanka government and the Sri Lanka Armed Force. That has been accepted. The customs, the immigration and the police are also under the government of Sri Lanka. Then you are just a private port operator. The Southern Command itself is shifting from Galle to Hambantota. We've asked the Navy also to have more emphasis on anti-submarine warfare. Within our capabilities, you can see we are increasing the number of offshore patrol vessels. We will ensure that we can maintain the security of the Hambantota harbour. Neither does it help China to have Hambantota as a base. You're in the middle of nowhere. Then the next important phase is that we are also now conducting negotiations with the Indian Airport Company, a PPP with the Indian Airport Company and our Civil Aviation Authority to run the Mattala Airport. So no one can say that we have handed everything over lock, stock and barrel to China.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa laments the state of the country, highlighting that Sri Lanka cannot guarantee a child's safety on streets. The former president made this remark while addressing an event held in Sri Abhayarama Temple in Narahenpita.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa attended a religious event held at Sri Abhayarama Temple this evening. Members of the Buddhist clergy, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Chief Minister of the Western Province Isura Devapriya, Professor Kalu Fonseca and several others also graced the event.
Today we are ashamed to say that we are Buddhists. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa curbed the underworld and drug trafficking, and it wasn't done through capital punishment. There are, however, instances where they had to take stern action. I remember the incident at the Valikada prison. I don't ask anyone to practice meditation during such instances. Those who attempted to control such situations are imprisoned at present. How can crime in the country be controlled like this? Today, narcotics have become a common element in society. Some ministers accuse the public for this. A chief minister and a cabinet minister have made remarks saying that those who try to topple the government while being in the civil society are connected to drug dealing. Then in turn, some in civil society say that vehicles of those who speak about it are caught dealing drugs near St. Thomas's College in Mount Lavinia. It is an era where a child cannot be safe on the roads. I believe it's time for a change.
The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka has written to President Maithripala Sirisena raising concerns over the move to reinstate the death penalty on convicts involved in drug trafficking. Through the letter, the Sri Lanka Human Rights Commission expresses their sheer disappointment over the decision to implement death penalty.
In a letter to President Maithripala Sirisena, the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka expressed their disappointment over the proposal to reinstate the death penalty. The letter says that death penalty should be nullified as it is a brutal and inhuman punishment that blatantly violates human rights, which is extreme and irreversible, as well as a meaningless punishment to curb crimes. The letter goes on to say that if the convicted drug traffickers are continuing to be involved in drug dealing while in prison, the solution should be to enforce the law against the prison officials involved in the matter and to tighten security through the use of modern technology. In such a backdrop, 5 members of the same family were arrested by the anti-corruption unit today while packaging heroin at the area of Veeramawatha in Maharagama. Following the cabinet's decision to reintroduce the capital punishment, views for and against the move have been rife.
Even the media keep talking about the government's failure to eradicate drug trafficking. But when we attempt to do something about it, they say that it's not ethical. This was brought into focus in a bid to divert people's attention from other burning issues. This is a well-planned strategy. Drug trafficking was active on various levels during the recent past. Our government has a responsibility to curb this, and that that's why we brought such laws.
මේ වගේ නීති රීති ගේන්න
දේශපාලනඥයෝ ඉන්නවා මේකේ.
There are politicians behind powerful traffickers. They could stop this by arresting the politicians and imprisoning them on suspicion. This cannot be prevented just by reintroducing the death penalty.
ඔය මරා දැමීමෙන් වළක්වන්න බෑ.
කැබිනට් එකේදී අනුමත වුණේ
The cabinet gave its approval to implement the death penalty on large-scale drug dealers. Later, I read in newspapers that the president had asked to implement this on prisoners who were found dealing while in prison. It cannot be divided that way.
ඒව දෙපැත්තකට බෙදන්න බෑනේ.
We don't see any justice to the argument what we have seen today. Pakistan is one of the countries who is exercising the death penalty, and we know Pakistan is one of the countries who is providing the bulk drugs, heroin and the other drugs to Sri Lanka. It is evident that the exercising of the death penalty has not reduced the drug trade in Pakistan. We should not encourage the penalty at any circumstance. It is totally against the human rights practices and principles. We have seen that the basic law enforcement is not implemented on the prison premises. We have to admit that the prison premises are one of the most corrupt institutions in the country. These issues cannot be isolated from the main cause.
Foreign Minister Basil Rajapaksa is confident that the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna equipped to overcome the looming provincial council election. Addressing the launch of what is dubbed the public weave against the government in Rajarata, the former minister said the party is conditioned to win the provincial polls, irrespective of the electoral system under which it will be held.
Many representatives of the joint opposition participated in the anti-government rally held in Kandruwela today.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa will decide as to who will be the presidential candidate. Basil Rajapaksa and Gotabe Rajapaksa will stand by him and will help him build the country that has collapsed.
The anti-government rally organised by the SLPP in Tabuttegama was held under the patronage of former Minister Basil Rajapaksa.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna is 1.5 years old. Some call for the provincial council election to be held according to the ward-based system and some request the old system. Hold the election under any system. We will defeat this government.
The national organizer of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Minister Duminda Dissanayake, moved to clear his stance on the prospect of a member of the Rajapaksa family contesting the presidential election. The minister highlighted the prospect as a nepotistic measure and questioned how it could be backed. The minister was addressing a gathering of the party in Madhavachya.
The group of 16 panicked following the results of the local authorities' election and withdrew from the government. They said that the former President Rajapaksa will be the presidential candidate, but they are not regarded by the other side and are rejected. The next person with the greatest possibility of winning the presidential election is President Maithripala Sirisena. Although the flower bud throws around names as presidential candidates, neither Mahinda nor Gotabe or Basil can contest. It is clear Mahinda hasn't changed, as he is still talking about fronting another Rajapaksa instead of handing over power to a common candidate. How can such a process be given support? Promoting Dinesh Gunawardena or Vasudeva Nanayakara as candidates would at least give something to talk about. I am the General Secretary of the UPFA, and that's decided by the parties of the UPFA. The topic of discussion is over the post of the General Secretary of the SLFP. We have no issues pertaining to positions if he functions well. Any one of the party is capable of holding positions.
The dialogue on possible presidential candidates has been intensifying with various names thrown into the mix. Responding to questions raised by journalists during a media briefing in Jaffna, parliamentarian of the United People's Freedom Alliance, Namal Rajapaksa, pledges to front a presidential candidate who is capable of bringing the North and the South close together.
LTT ඉතින් ජාර්ම ඉතින් සල්ලි දීලා මේ පැත්තේ ඡන්ද නැවතුර කියන එලිගේෂන් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ජේකලාමහේශ්වරන් දැන් LTT ගැන කතා කරපුවම දකුණේ ඉන්න දේශපාලකයන් ඒකට හෙලා දැකිනවා. ඒ ගැන ඔබතුමාගේ
Let's get one thing clear. We are against terrorism. We never did and will not engage in politics with terrorists. The TNA is with the government. It has not cast a single vote against the government in the parliament. TNA is only the opposition for the namesake. How can a party which cannot speak up about the employment issues in the north be an opposition? The government lied about the constitutional amendment as well. None of them speak of bringing development to the Tamil communities, and instead they speak of the LTTE.
Terrorist investigation. දකුණේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නවල handle කරන්නේ crime division එක. ඇයි එහෙම
The TID also handles some cases in the south. The government doesn't want to stop the underworld or armed groups in these areas. If it wanted, the government would have stopped it by now. Instead of addressing these issues, the government relies on the TNA and other groups to get the votes in these areas. So neither the president nor the prime minister has to work for the north because the TNA will get the votes somehow.
candidate වෙන්නේ ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ කියලා නමක් කියනවා ඒ වගේම නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ කියලා කියනවා
නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ පොඩි වැඩි තාම
Namal is not mature enough yet, and when the time comes, President Rajapaksa will appoint a candidate capable of bringing the north and the south closer together. The SLPP will form a new political program and give the chance for rural youth in north and east to enter politics. We will ensure new parliamentarians from the north during the next election so they can address issues of people in Jaffna from Jaffna.
යාපන ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න පුළුවන්.
We will bring you more news on the business arena after the following break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. The All Island Bakery Owners Association announces an imminent price hike in bakery products. Addressing a media briefing in Gampaha today, the chairman of the association said that prices of all bakery products will be increased by 5 rupees from tomorrow, with the exception of bread. He, however, heralded a warning on possible hike in prices of bread in the future.
The price of a gas cylinder used in hotels and bakeries is not yet reduced. Most of the machinery used in bakeries run on diesel. Therefore, we decided to increase the price of bakery products, except for bread, by 5 rupees from midnight on Sunday. If the government can provide any concession, we can pass it on to the consumer. In case the government fails, we would have to increase the price of bread by 10 rupees.
In the meantime, Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Arjuna Ranatunga expressed his views on the fuel price hike while speaking to media in Gampaha.
These decisions are taken by the Ministry of Finance and the Treasury. We have left the Treasury to handle such issues. Therefore, we have to do what the Treasury says. No one in the government likes this. But we have to agree with these decisions that will take the country forward, although we might not like those decisions.
Experts and academics call for proper policies and legislation prior to the establishment of the Colombo port city. These views expressed at a seminar titled Towards the Main Financial Hub of Asia, Port City Colombo today.
I haven't seen any international projects, any bilateral or multilateral economic relations project without geopolitical issues. I haven't seen any of it. It's part of the game. Another issue that I have seen is that because of this kind of particular relationship that Sri Lanka developed with China, now we are in a debt trap. You can invest in a different way. You can invest for a better return. It is not that China did that. It is that we asked to invest here and there in these projects. The second part of the problem is, it is not about the borrowings for investment, it is about our economic growth. It has to be sustained over 10-20 year period. That's what they have done, all big countries. So, it is not about borrowing from China or from India or from Japan, someone else, and inviting them to invest here. It is about how you manage that investment, how you manage your development project.
There is a symbiotic relationship between the design of that and the legislation relating to financial. Both must go hand in hand. You can't sell it without having a plan or design of the legislation as to what products and services are to be sold or dealt with in that offshore financial center. And nobody crazy will put money just on leased land without knowing the regime under which that person is going to put his money down. We must get the concepts very clearly in dealing with this complex subject, because most of our politicians do not, our bureaucrats in the public services do not have an iota of this concept, because they are conceptually not clear in their minds as to how we should deal with the port city, in what level, in what way.
We actually do not know what the system of law that is going to take place or that will be applicable in the port city. I have researched all over the internet. There is absolutely zilch on what is the legal regime that will be applicable in the port city. So we have the first roadblock in that if we are looking at a legal system with a separate legal structure within this Colombo International Financial City, then the first thing is that the Constitution, that is an Article 4 of the Constitution, which I believe is pretty difficult to amend, will have to be amended. We are looking at a court structure where the judicial power of the people, because the CIFC will be a part of the sovereign nation of Sri Lanka, CIFC will be governed by the Constitution of Sri Lanka. If the Constitution of Sri Lanka governs the CIFC and the territory of the port city, then necessarily the judicial system that should be used or that should be implemented within that CIFC has to be the judicial system as presently exercised in Sri Lanka at the moment. So
a suicide bomber has killed at least 128 people at a campaign rally in southwestern Pakistan in what is the deadliest attack in the country since 2014. A local candidate was among the dead in the Mastung town, while the so-called Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was arrested after flying home from the UK. A suicide bomber killed at least 128 people at an election rally in southwestern Pakistan in the second election-related attack yesterday, amid growing tensions over ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's return ahead of the July 25th vote. The bombing came as Pakistan's caretaker government launched a crackdown on political gatherings with Sharif, who was ousted by the Supreme Court last year and convicted in absentia of corruption a week ago, flying back to rally his party ahead of the general elections. More than 1,000 people were in attendance at the rally in the town of Mastung in the violence-plagued province of Balochistan. Early in the day, a bomb killed 4 people in the northern town of Bannu when it struck the campaign convoy of Akram Khan Durrani, an ally of Sharif's party from the religious Muttahida Majlis-e-Amal party. The Pakistani Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. Ex-PM Sharif and his daughter were arrested soon after their arrival and escorted from the airplane by uniformed men. Mobile phone service had been cut off in mid-afternoon as Sharif's brother Shehbaz led around 10,000 party supporters on a march towards the city centre in defiance of a citywide ban on public gatherings, according to a Reuters witness. Sharif alleges the military is aiding a judicial witch hunt against him and his Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz party. The party's past 5 years in power has been punctuated by the civil-military discord that has plagued Pakistan since its inception. But the party expects a groundswell of support as Sharif returns from London, where his wife Kulsum is critically ill and undergoing cancer treatment. US President Donald Trump and his wife Melania landed in Glasgow of Scotland yesterday before heading to stay at his Turnberry golf course during his working visit to the UK. The protest reached him there when a paraglider bearing the logo of environmental campaign group Greenpeace swooped within some few hundred yards of the president as he stood outside the golf course's hotel.
In Glasgow, protesters gathered to rally against US President Donald Trump during his arrival. The rally also had a small contingent of pro-Trump supporters holding a banner that read "Scots for Trump." He will stay in Scotland until tomorrow when he heads to Helsinki for talks with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Trump said he would bring up the issue of nuclear disarmament with Putin. But there are calls for the meeting to be cancelled after the US charged 12 Russian intelligence officers with election interference yesterday.
The indictment charges 12 Russian military officers by name for conspiring to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. 11 of the defendants are charged with conspiring to hack into computers, steal documents, and release those documents with the intent to interfere in the election. One of those defendants and a 12th Russian military officer are charged with conspiring to infiltrate computers of organizations involved in administering elections.
For its part, Russia said it was looking forward to the meeting. Kremlin advisor Yuri Yushakov said Russia considered Trump a negotiating partner, adding that the state of bilateral relations is very bad and it's time to start setting them right.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
US Olympian Kim Vandenberg, who is currently in Sri Lanka, conducted a swim clinic at the Foundation of Goodness in Seenigama of Hikkadua yesterday. She will be conducting swim clinics until the 22nd of this month.
45 swimmers from the Foundation of Goodness received the opportunity to take part in a swim clinic by US Olympian Kim Vandenberg in Seenigama of Hikkadua last evening. The two-day session saw the participation of girls and boys of all age groups who were taught new techniques and methods in swimming. Vandenberg was accompanied by New York-based coach and USC swimming official Dhammika Vitanacci.
I'm here to share all my years of experience in the water and swimming and teaching all the kids my favorite drills and working on flip turns and helping them dream big, and hopefully they could pursue swimming or pursue whatever goal they have in life. And I think there's a lot of potential. So with more experience and more knowledge of the sport, they're going to be able to improve their swimming.
Kim Vandenberg, who clinched bronze at the 2018 Summer Olympic in Beijing, will be hosting public and private swim clinics across the island until the 22nd of this month. Remaining swim clinics will be held in Colombo and Kandy.
The World Cup final is almost upon us, with former champions France set to take on Croatia at the Luzhniki Stadium in Russia tomorrow. But before that, the third and fourth places had to be determined, and for that, two losing semi-finalists Belgium and England took on each other today. The playoff ended moments ago, and it was Belgium who came out on top with goals from Thomas Meunier and Eden Hazard eeling the win. This campaign has been England's best at a World Cup since 1990 and is widely regarded as a turning point for the underachieving nation. Sheila Fernando is at the Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Forecast First. Starting off with your temperatures for tomorrow, they are to vary between 20 and 34 degrees Celsius, with the highest of 34 expected in Batticaloa and Trincomalee. Well, when looking at the map, a low pressure zone will develop in the western province and will gradually disappear. Well, Jaffna, Mannar, Anuradhapura, Trincomalee and Batticaloa will experience continuous sunshine, but the areas of Vaunia, Putlam, Kandy, Colombo, Galle and Matra as well as Hambantota will, however, experience showers. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your City by City forecast.
And that's a wrap with this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.
the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.